Good morning. I have an energy update. I've been recording readings and energy videos for a week and not posting them, but I've just been I've been getting the nudge to not post them for whatever reason. So I trust my guidance, the way it comes through. And at this point, I'm just cutting that whole batch loose and starting over. So I'm going to start this morning just by talking about the weekend and the solar storms. Obviously, it's not just like a spiritual community event. This is something that everybody is aware of with the Aurora Borealis, which is very interesting indeed. There's a lot of stuff that I believe is, yes, it's naturally occurring, but do not forget that when things like this are happening, there are other things that take place at the same time because there's commotion, there's stuff going on. So there's other stuff that we need to be diligent of. Don't just accept things at face value, question things, really understand and study the information that we're being presented with right now throughout the past weekend and in the coming weeks. There's a lot to be extracted from the subtext, and never forget that our co-created collective manifestation is leaking out bits of truth as much as it can. It's very interesting. I'm talking about titles of articles, wording, the way that, and this could even be the words that slip out of a news anchor's mouth, because if you know anything about the networks, that's not original thinking. They're all teleprompted and they're reading very, very, very similar scripts that have been written by executives of those, or not executives, I don't know how the F it works, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of information that is embedded into what it is that is kind of bubbling. It's all part of the matrix breaking. Like, I'm seeing cables snapping and they're like live wires and they have sparks on them and there's little sparks flying off as things kind of snap. I probably should do a video where I pull a few of these examples. So here are some themes with the solar storms, what they're kind of creating within us. I mean, it's the biggest rise in consciousness prompted by these new particles. We're transversing this photon belt and it's not done. We're going to be experiencing, and I listened to a scientist talk about the solar storms. We're reaching what's called a solar peak in 2025. So this is going to change the world radically. We might start having different colors in the sky or the atmosphere on a more regular basis, or different types of things on Earth with light and reflections and sparkles. Everything that I like is going to be intensifying. We're going to be able to perceive new things and do new things, and like the masses of sleeping people who have never been able to reconcile with an existence that takes place in more than just the 3D world that we can see and touch, they're going to be extending their consciousness into the higher realms that are just 4D and 5th dimensional, whereas other people are going to be able to start accessing ninth dimension, much higher realms of spiritual activity, spiritual sight, and it's going to translate into abilities. And it's a really beautiful time because you don't have to just believe based on inner knowing. Soon here for humanity, you're going to be able to believe because you're going to be able to watch somebody with special abilities teleport an object, or move things with their minds. This has been the type of stuff like monks walking on coal, mind over matter. The healers, the shaman, the starseed, the light workers among us are going to be highly activated. And what's beautiful about this is that there are people like myself who were awoken and activated in 2012, or there are people who are deeply, deeply gifted that have never been activated before now, and they're going to start to remember who they are. They're going to start to have memories from past lives and remember how to do certain gifts or certain abilities that we've been made to think aren't possible. But it's going to happen very spontaneously for them because everybody's journey is different. Some of us were meant to slog through the trenches and put in the foundational groundwork for the last decade, and other people were meant to awaken at this time and just come to the table. It's already been set and we're getting ready for the first course to come out. So it's really, really cool. And I think on the personal level, there's going to be some weird, very kind of uncomfortable, dramatic shifting in our emotional scales for the last, I think it's been going on since last week, just people feeling out of sorts, and then physically the challenges that are taking place, feeling a little bit weaker, a little bit more exhausted. You just have to let that be. You have to trust that your body is processing a ton of energy. It's not a bad thing. It's a measure of protection. And when you get that exhausted, your body's trying to get you to be resting. You're doing a lot more energetically than you're aware of. You're doing a lot more in the dream state than you're conscious of. You have to respect that process, or you could get bogged down right now and feel even less clear. There's a way to just allow for the energy to move through you and to give yourself grace with understanding that we're going through a huge transition and transformation. And never forget that when you're asleep and you can turn off your conscious mind, you're allowing for energy to integrate. You're doing yourself a very big favor when you just like sleep. If you have the time to sleep more than usual, it's a really good idea. It's not lazy or anything. It's I would be asleep if I could be. Just integrating. But back to the emotional stuff, just like little nitty-gritty weirdnesses that I see as parts of our previous cycles populating on this part of the timeline because of the way that the gears are aligning in the becomingness of our creation fractal. If you've got multiple discs that are rotating at different speeds and they're stacked on a vertical column, there's a little bit of a, or just the mechanisms within a timepiece or a clock or a watch, they're lining up such that something deep within us that took place years ago is being triggered and activated in a way that we have we're higher on the ladder, right? And as we repeat certain parts of the cycle, they're never quite the same. We're always presented with something a little bit different. The universe is doing it this way so that we might realize something more about it. If we don't, we're signing up for another iteration of the same pattern in a new format, manifesting in a different way through different people or different mishaps in the future. So we're clearing out a major one right now that if you're committing to your highest/higher timeline, wherever you are, wherever you're ascending to, wherever you've been, wherever you're moving on to, as far as how you've believed your life to be and what it is that you're capable of up until this point and what it is you're going to be doing going forward, you're clearing this one out. You know, if you're going to be a cycle repeater and you're not clearing it out, you're not listening to me on YouTube right now. You're doing something else. Let those feelings and emotions be what they are. For me, it even manifested in like actual people from my past coming back to not literally knock on my door, but emotionally and mentally, and it really did like trigger me, bother me. My personal opinion right now is that if somebody's from the past, they're in the past for a reason, and all it's doing for you is presenting just how much you've changed and how much you know that you don't resonate with those paths anymore. Now that's not going to be something that everybody resonates with, because in some people's situations there probably is somebody from the past who's done a lot of work and you are aligned with that person, and maybe it's time to be with that person. But maybe I did a double take, but at the same time I know that the way that it feels energetically is that I've moved so far beyond what it feels like there's a baited hook there, and it's just like, no, there's nothing here for me. Somebody who really, really hurt me 6 years ago wanting to chat, and it's just like, really? This weekend of all weekends? Interesting. So allow for the emotional stuff that comes up to just be uncomfortable in the way that it is. But again, feeling it is healing it. We don't necessarily like that, especially if you are kind of hip to the idea that whatever you carry and possess vibrationally and energetically, that's where you're manifesting from. People who get that, even in a really basic way, they don't like it when we're like, maybe like in a puddle of tears on the floor, because it's like, oh no, I'm manifesting from this devastated vibrational standpoint. No. What you were doing before is manifesting from a standpoint that didn't have that purged out of you. It was subliminal. It was under the surface, you know? The topography of the surface had that embossed in it because it was hidden. It was still there. It wasn't cleared out. So there's very necessary emotional purging that has to be done so that you don't manifest from that position going forward. It doesn't mean you're succumbing or giving in to the bad thing, you know, or affirming it. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this, but it's just important to feel the feelings and know that that is functional. Even if you don't sit up and have some epiphany after and you're like, oh, I get it now, I've ascended. It's not going to happen. That's the type of dumb bullshit that that's like, you know, movies. It's so much more of a deeper form of insight that might kind of percolate steadily or slowly, or just you wake up and you're different. You know, you're able somehow to just be different. Also, just make sure you protect yourself energetically right now with the new energy coming in. We receive that through our crown chakras. Our crown chakras are being highly activated, so new ideas and stuff coming in, new ways of thinking. But this is also subject to interference. So if you're picking up on anxiety, just simply release it. Do not claim it. Do not amplify anxious wavelengths in your vibration if you don't have to. That's a choice. You can pick them up, you can put them down. don't pick them up in the first place. It'll be much easier to do this. You won't really be affected by them as much if you have protective crystals that have frequencies that are not going to allow you to feel those collective interferences coming through. It'll be easier for you. I've been having a really tough time this weekend because I woke up on Saturday morning and my dog is entirely blind. He's completely blind, and spontaneous blindness in diabetic dogs is very common, but I didn't know that. Now I do. And he's going to get used to it. Dogs are incredibly adaptable, but because it was so sudden, I'm bringing him to work today. I mean, he's blind. He can't go anywhere. He can't even find his water dish without bumping into something. So I'm just taking care to move through this transition without being an emotional puddle, because I'm incredibly attached to the dog, and something that is, I wasn't prepared to say goodbye to the fact that he can't read my facial expressions anymore, which is such a big part of our relationship. And this dog, as my emotional support animal, this dog has saved my life multiple times, and all dogs' lives come to an end, but I'm not ready. And I'm not saying that his life is over, but we're obviously transitioning into a different way of life, and I'm not going to be able to engage with him the way that I was before, where I talk to him and he's just so emotive and expressive, and those emotions and his expressions make me happy, and now he's just blank, and it's really hard for me. It's like he's not there anymore. It makes me want to cry, and I have been crying all weekend about it. But I'm gonna take care of him, and I'm gonna love him just the same, exactly as I would, and help him have the best little life he possibly can as a blind little bat for as long as he'll stay with me. So oh, if anybody's going through something challenging, I know there's much harder things than having your dog go blind, but it's still super emotional for me. So I'm just sending big love out there. For anybody who wants to pick it up, just like the anxiety frequencies, you can pick it up or you can put it down. So just know that I'm sending it out there. Please allow it to lift you up today. There's so many beautiful things coming. Do not plug into these apocalyptic timelines. I know that there's a lot of doom and gloom out there, but it is your choice to be a piece of the puzzle that is vibrating at a different wavelength. And as a reminder, it's very, very possible to have compassion for the suffering of others and not yourself suffer. That is a big convolution. It's almost like religious indoctrination or guilt around not feeling like a person can be happy if there are other people who are not. That's not productive. If you start to self-sabotage and suffer because other people are, then you're not a strong, healthy person who's able to create a solution. So just stay diligent out there, and I hope everybody has a fabulous day.